All right, hello everyone, and here we are back with another Create with Decoded session. This is a hotly anticipated one with my friend Tom Veselovsky, who is a no-code and AI developer all the way from Poland, working mainly with Bubble and Xano. And Tom has kindly agreed to come on to show us how to build AI agents natively in Bubble, which is very exciting because I've been trying out a fair few AI agent platforms recently. And yeah, it's like a whole new learning curve.
Yeah.
They all have their
Mm.
limitations, and it's hard to know which one to pick. And when you have a tool like Bubble, which is so powerful, uh, the ability to add agent features to our existing Bubble apps or just create an AI agent in Bubble just seems like it should be something we all know how to do. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah,
And
thanks for having me.
yeah, do you want to
My pleasure.
tell us a bit
Yeah.
more about your background and how you
Yeah,
discovered you could
yeah,
build
sure.
agents in Bubble?
Sure. So my background is mainly in IT and software business. I mean, I'm not a software developer, but many years ago, I started my company where I was building websites. It was many years ago. And then it grew up to a bigger software development company. But then I sold it. Then I went into the startup industry. And then a few years ago, I discovered Bubble. I've discovered no code, and I found out that I can really build things on my own. Because as I said, I'm not a software developer. I do understand the logics, the software, but I'm more like an UI designer than a software developer. And yeah, AI agents and AI assistants market is really exciting. The funny thing is that my startup I tried to build in 2016 when I had my exit from the previous company was actually an AI powered assistant called Edward, and we tried to build it with some funds from VCs, from business angels, and we've been building it for a couple of years till I think till the pandemic started. It was an AI assistant targeted to the field salespeople. So when the pandemic started, all the field sales were shut down. So it was really hard to compete. But the thing is that we've been building this AI assistant on our own. There were no, GPTs, no models. We've been writing our own models, creating a conversational interface. It was all new. I was, with on many conferences speaking about the future, that AI is the future, and no one was talking about it. And then suddenly 2 years ago, it all, the boom created by ChatGPT and all the AI experts and all of the stuff that is currently possible to build during one weekend. It's super exciting because previously we've been spending months and years to build it, and the technology wasn't ready for this. And right now you can, point and click, use many of the ready to go platforms, use some no code editors or even AI prompting tools to build your own AI assistants. Really exciting times. And and couple of weeks ago, I started experimenting because there's a huge hype around so-called AI agents, right? This year is an AI agent year. Everybody's building AI agents. So I started experimenting with building AI agent with Bubble. And I think that the main thing with this all AI agent hype is firstly to understand the logic of building the AI agent. What is an AI agent? And then when you understand the logic behind and how to build the logic of agent, you can move to Bubble and transform this logic using your knowledge on how to build Bubble stuff to create such AI agents. And the thing is that these days most of AI agents are like an AI assistants powered by some tools they can run, some external functions they can run and provide you with results. And the difference between the typical chatbot and an assistant and an agent is that firstly, an agent has some kind of an autonomy, so it doesn't have to work like a chatbot, question answer, question answer, question answer. It can perform actions and functions and tool calling on his behalf, on its behalf, right? Because it's not a person. Some call it as a person, but I still keep repeating he about the agent, but yeah, doesn't matter. And the other thing is that it has an access to a memory, right? And the memory can be your data, your application data, your tools from your application, and so on and so on. So yeah, let me share my screen, and I will tell you firstly about the logic of the assistant, and then once we understand it, it will be easier to move forward. Let me click to share my screen, and this will be this one. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So for building AI agent, we will be using the OpenAI API, because OpenAI provides you the model that can perform tasks, and it's also, you know, the most the most popular thing. But you can use any of the other AI models, for example, Claude, that can also perform actions and so on. For the example, I will use OpenAI, and also the easiest endpoint called Chat Completions API. Of course, we can use Assistants API or Responses API, the newest endpoint, but the Chat Completions is, you know, the easiest to understand, so we won't overcomplicate, because using Chat Completions API and the function called tool calling, you can build and first version of your AI agent. Yeah, so this is our stack in terms of the external tools. We will use OpenAI API, and of course we'll use Bubble. But before we'll go to Bubble, let's try to understand how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course we have the simplest call to the OpenAI chat completions call, where you ask something and it responds with an answer, right? So I will use Postman, which is a platform to test API calls, to show you how it works. So we'll import this call from let's call it create with webinar, and we'll play around with it. And the API key is here. So we'll call the API. Yeah, this. We'll call the OpenAI API. I will remove this from authentication, and this is you know, the simplest call you can use. Write a one sentence story about the unicorn, and when we send it to OpenAI, we'll get a response, right? So this was our question, and this is our response, right? So this is the response we can display in the interface. This is the easiest thing. I mean, the chatbot part, because when we put another question, tell me more about this unicorn, it won't have the memory, so it won't know about this one, right? So it will start from scratch. When I send it again, it won't know about the story about the unicorn he has written. He will start from scratch. See, unicorn can refer to very different things,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah, and for anyone listening who's never used API calls or anything, I would definitely recommend the OpenAI one as being just a great one to start with, because it is really well documented. It's about as simple as they get, and I know that some of the JSON formatting can look a bit scary because you got this like nested structure with symbols, and it starts to look a bit like code. But once you get an understanding of what each thing is doing, it's just so much power within one little API call.
Yeah. Instead of trying to create an AI agent, first you try to use some calls from documentation. It's really well documented, and don't go to, for example, AI assistant here. Just use this completion API and use Postman, because Postman, instead of going to Babel, start with Postman, because Postman is the easiest way to call APIs and get responses. So yeah, you can just click import here, and as I did, just paste this URL from the this wasn't this URL, this was the API key. You can click here to get the CURL call and paste it here, and it will transform it into the call. The same is in Babel, but before, if you go to Babel and start building the Babel, it's tempting to start building. But before start building, you need to understand things, because it will be just easier, right? Let's go with this write one sentence story about the unicorn, this simple call. And first thing we need to do is to add a memory to our assistant. Right now, it's just a simple chatbot. To add a memory, we can of course use an assistant API and use threads and so on. It's a more complex way of doing things. Or we can just add this message that we have received to our next call and add another call, another question, right? So look what I did. I had my first question. User says, write one sentence bedtime story about the unicorn. The assistant responds. I paste it here with a role assistant, and then another question from the user. So tell me more about this unicorn. If I didn't mess up, it should, yeah, now it should respond. Yeah, see, now it responded, and it responded that lira, blah, blah, blah. And here in the first answer, he mentioned that unicorn, it has lira. So now it has a simple memory of the previous conversations. So this is the first step, what we need to do. And building the memory of the conversation by pasting the previous responses is the easiest way to start with OpenAI API. Because of course, if you are using some more complex ways of calling the API, like Assistants API or Responses API with the threads, we may say it's built in, but using this type of API, it's more complex. So start with this, right? So
yeah, and I feel like
this is.
Do you think that like ChatGPT and Claude still work in the same way by sending through a list of all the previous messages in the conversation in every new chat message you send? Because when you're using like Claude, it's you start having a long conversation, it says recommend you start a new conversation because this thread is getting too long. So
yeah. To simplify things, we may say yes, they do work like this. But if you do, for example, like something what is called projects, and it works more like an assistant. It has a knowledge somewhere in the background and powers this knowledge from the files, and then you can chat about these files and the project knowledge. So if you are using just chat, the typical chat in ChatGPT or any of the LLMs, it works like this, right? So it keeps the history.
It always seems so primitive to me. Like ever since I first realized that's how they work, I assumed, oh, this is just temporary. Like they will at some point have you will be assigned like a thread ID, and then you'll just everything is attached to that, and it will somehow have the context that it's like in its own memory, not you having to send all the information every time.
Yeah, actually, for example, if you are using ChatGPT, it has its memory. If you not all of the users have access to it, but you can switch the memory function, and then it will learn from your previous conversations, right? So, I mean, we cannot say that they use exactly this method because it's a simplification of thing. But for sure, if you are building your first assistant, you should use this method because it's the easiest one. Of course, all the LLMs have something called context window. So the context window is a number of tokens, so a number of conversations and the characters. Well, not characters because we may simplify and say it's a characters because token may be a group of characters, but yeah, a limited number of characters it can handle. For example, the Gemini model from Google has right now 1 million token window, which is a lot. The Claude has, I think, 100,000, and the OpenAI depends on the model you are using. So the longer context windows you have, the more messages history you can put, or the more documents and the more information, right? So yeah, so this is the simplest call we have, and this is how we build the memory. But to provide a way for our assistant or an agent to perform actions, we should provide it an information about what kind of actions he can perform. And in terms of OpenAI, it's called function calling or tool calling. In Claude, is also tool calling. So in this call, we are saying we are sending a list of tools that can be used along with our conversation. And this was the hardest thing for me to understand. What type of tools, what type of functions do they have to exist in OpenAI, or do I have to upload some code to OpenAI to perform functions? So this was the hardest part to understand for me. The truth is that this function calling is nothing more like providing an information that if the assistant, if OpenAI will decide based on the question from user that he can use any of these functions here. So this is an example from an OpenAI page, right? Sending email. The user asks, can you send an email to islandexample.com? And based on that, if we provide an API call with tools, the OpenAI LLM will try to understand, okay, if user asks, can you send an email? I will search this node with the functions about sending email, and we'll try to run this function. But running this function means that OpenAI will respond with the function name and the parameters to this function. And then we need to use this function in our system and decide what this function will need to do. I mean, OpenAI won't send an email because it doesn't have the functions to send email. But OpenAI can say us, I found in the context of what user asks that probably he wants to send an email. So I'm sending you the function called send email in your response. And then we need to fetch this response and use it in our system, for example, Bubble App, to call a function. And the function may be, it can be a custom function. It can be external API call. It can be an action in the Bubble workflow. It can be whatever you want, right? So let me demonstrate this. So I will copy this.
It's basically just returning a structured response to say, here's the information that your tool, however you make it, is going to need. And you could just say to it in your message, you could just say return this in a structure that looks like this.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would be it's kind of the same thing, right?
I will import this one into the API, this directly from the documentation. And the collection is, And yeah, again, the authorization is bearer. This is this one. Some people ask me why I'm sharing these tokens publicly, also on the apps I'm using. I mean, they are restricted only to a few bucks, so but it's easier, you know, to people not to for them, you know, to play around with an apps that I'm sharing, that these apps simply work, right? So, and I also trust in bubblers that they don't use it for their own. Yeah, so this is the call. So the previous one, where is the previous one? See, it was user asks the message, assistant responds, user asks another message. And the one with tools is the same. I mean, we've got these messages, but we've added another one, the tools that can be used. And then when we ask, can you send an email to Ilan? Let's just put it like this, and we click send. See, yeah. And the assistant responded, could you please provide details on the subject and body of the email? So he understood that I want to send an email, but he doesn't have a details of the body of an email. Can you send an email with subject test and body test to Ilan? Let's do it again. Yeah, and then after he has all the information, the assistant is not responding. Stop calling this assistant him. It's not the real person. Stop. The assistant is not responding with a text response, but the assistant is responding with the tool calls. See, the text content is empty, but the assistant responded that we need to call a function called send email to, and he formatted this function according to the information I provided, right? The Ilan example, subject test, body, and body test. And again, if I say, can you send an email? He will ask me questions about this email. Yes, I can help send you email. Please provide me with the recipient's email address, subject line, and the body. And then
so you could also presumably ask him to decide the subject line and the body itself. So send an email to Ilan. You decide the body, but here's like some information.
We can actually describe it in the function, right? So the function description is send an email to a given recipient with a subject and message. But the description of the function can be send an email to ilanexample.com with a test subject and test message. Yep. And yeah, this is again the thing with the with prompting, because we can, if we say, can you send an email, and the description of the function will be send an email to with the test subject and test message. I think it should be able to understand it or not. No, it won't understand it. Yeah, so we can do it in a couple of ways. Firstly, we can provide the instruction at the beginning, right? So the first message can be role developer, and the content will be a system instruction. And in this system instruction, we can say you are sending email assistant. When user asks for sending email, use function to send it to Ilan example with a test body and subject. Yep. Let me check if it's okay. Yeah, now
You
we
need
will.
a closing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So now we've added the first message that it's like an instruction for the assistant what to do. Let's check the send. See, right now I've asked the question, can you send an email? But based on the system instruction, it understood that he needs to send an email using this. This is a test subject and test email body. So right now it's more like playing with these prompts and what should be allowed and what not. If I will ask, what is the weather? What is the weather? Weather. What is the weather? Yeah, he answers that he is unable to provide real-time weather updates. You can check the weather on a website app like Google Weather and so on. But we can add the possibility for the assistant to call functions about the weather, right? So we can add another tool called get weather, like this send email get weather, and then when I will ask about the weather, he will call this function, right? So you just need to provide a list of functions, list of possibilities that assistant can do, and then instruct him that he's allowed to do this. We can also just, how are you? We can just ask a simple questions, and he just answers like with a text, right? So if he recognizes that he needs to call a function, he calls the function. If he recognizes that he's not able to do something, he will respond. And if we are just using the simple chat, like in the first example, he will just chat like this. If we ask this assistant with tools to write a one sentence bedtime story about the unicorn, he should be able to do this. See? So he has all the possibilities from the simple assistant. Of course, we can try to restrict it in the developer messages, right? Do not answer any other questions. Just you are just sending emails. This is more like the prompt, playing around with prompts. So when I right now try to ask about the one sentence about the unicorn, he answers that he's here to send emails from you. Yeah? So this is the way of playing around with this. And now when we have all this, so we have an assistant, we have a memory, the list of conversation, and we have these tools, and we understand this, because this is the most important thing. If we understand on how it works, we can move to Bubble and create our app based on this. And this app needs to have logic that recognizes various things returned from OpenAI, and based on those responses, calls functions, asks user, or just displays messages, right? So this is the first half of our webinar was about understanding this, but as I said, this is the crucial part of building the AI agent.
Yeah, and this is very very good information for people who have never used any of these API calls before, and tools, functions, it all sounds a bit kind of scary and complicated until you look at it and you realize it's really just a way of forcing the API to respond with some structure and instead of just text. And you can do a lot with getting it to just respond with plain text. But if you want it to actually consistently take actions within your app, sometimes text just isn't enough. You need it to respond in a certain structure. And I've had good results giving it a JSON structure and saying you must respond like this, and then being able to like parse that in Bubble and do stuff. But this is like next level.
Actually you can I think it's not the next level. It's something between the JSON response. It's something between the simple text and this function calling. Because actually, if you have this function calling, the function calling is a next step on top of JSON response. Because actually, if you have a JSON response, based on the JSON response, you can perform actions. And the same is with functions, but you don't have to, play around with forcing an API, OpenAI API, to structure the JSON in the proper way, right? So I treat it as another level of the in terms of calling the API, right? So yeah,
Okay,
let's
can we have a look at Bubble?
yeah, let's go
really
to yeah, let's
interested
go
to
to
see
Bubble.
how
Yeah, I
you
will start a
implement
new
this.
app, create with demo, get started.
I can still only see your Postman screen. I don't know if this is in a different.
Yeah, because I'm creating a new app and
Oh, okay.
it takes a minute. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's start with the most important plugin called API connector, of course, right? We need an API connector to play around, and we will add an API called OpenAI, and the authentication will be private key in header. Let's start with this, and the private key is here. And we need a call called completions. I will copy it from here again. So in Bubble, of course, we can create calls manually, or we can import call from CURL. So again, I'm copying it from here, from this function calling, and pasting it here in the Bubble. And I can remove this example call. Right now I have CURL call. Let's call it chat completions with tools. I don't need this and that because it's already in here and here, and in the in the body I will have the messages and I will have the list of tools. We can initialize this call to check if it works. Yeah, and it has mapped me with the most important things. So we've got the message content. So this is the response we are holding, and the message tool calls. So the calls the OpenAI is performing. We'll need it in the next steps. The rest are not that important. Let's click save, and now I can do what I can do. Firstly, I can do here to create a role called developer and put a system instruction here. So you are a productivity assistant, and then we can of course extend it. Then we in the next line we will attach a list of messages. Yeah, so our memory we have. So the user asks, it responds like so. This is the call from Postman. This will be our list of messages we will be adding here. And here are the tools, right? So the tools are the list of functions, and we can put those functions, the functions that are possible to call. We can list all these functions here in the API call. But what I do, I remove it here, yeah, and I use it as a parameter functions. And yeah, and thanks to that, we can dynamically provide functions to the calls. And these functions can be either in the database. The functions list is just a list of text, right? The definition of the functions. So we can we can create a table, a data type with the functions for the user, to create new functions, or we can just keep it in the option set. I will create an option set called OpenAI functions. Yeah. And here we will have, for example, send email. Yeah, the function to send email. And each function can have the JSON, right? So the JSON text of the function and the name. And I will, in the moment, I will see if we have a function. So this is the definition of the function: type function, name, description, the parameters which are required, and so on and so on. And I keep all of this in the option set, so I can easily add new functions to our agent, because the idea of an agent is to provide him with a list of functions he can use, and then based on the conversation or on the behavior from the system, he can run those functions, right? So, for example, in the email, we'll have the JSON that sends an email, and the required simplified will be the body of the email. This will be to send, for example, an internal email to me, right? I can add more functions like this. For example, I can do the function, I can create the function to research web. And the list of the attributes, I have it somewhere, the example. Yeah, research web. And the definition of the function is that it does the research on the web. And here after this, it calls the function manage tasks to create or update relevant tasks. So in the function description, we can guide the assistant what to do next, or what should be done, what should be done before, right? So it's just a matter of experimenting with prompting and instructions. For now, I will just remove it. This will be the function to do a research, and it requires a topic to be researched. Yeah, I will click save. So right now I have a definition of two functions in the option set. And when I call the OpenAI, I can provide the call with the functions and of course the messages. Let's try to create a simple interface for that. Yeah.
This is so clever. I never would have thought of using it this way, of using the functions.
Yeah.
Do you have, is it the same price to do a chat completion with function calling as it is a normal chat completion?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more expensive because you are using more tokens, right? So this is the same thing, right? But
okay.
in terms of I will use I'm using the Elemium plugin to with the to have some components, and we will have this one. I will add it. Yeah, so this is our text area to ask. I won't need this, I won't need that. And this is the ML question. Yeah. So right now, when we click this button, we will do OpenAI. I think I've made, yeah, we need to, of course, use it as action, not as data. By default, is as data. I will use the OpenAI chat completions with tools. And the message will be, right here, right? So I'm using this same structure like here. So I'm copying this JSON from the example call. The messages will be, it will be this arbitrary text. Always use arbitrary text because it's easier. And the content will be the information from the input, right? So the question, value, formatted as JSON, safe. Or I will can add here the formatted as JSON safe and remove it from here. So the whole text will be formatted as JSON safe.
But then
If something is not
wrap the whole
working,
lot in speech marks?
yeah.
But yeah, won't it wrap
Yeah.
the message?
Yeah, you are
reference
right.
in
You
speech
should.
marks?
Yeah,
Okay.
you are right. We'll keep it here. Yeah, you are right. So let's leave it like this. And then the functions, we are keeping in the option set, right? So we'll just get all the functions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And each item's JSON. So it will be a comma separated list of JSONs what we need, right? So this is how we are doing this this call. So, and thanks to that, of course, we can add this add these functions as in the API connector, but right now it's easier to manage, right? If I want to add another functions, I'm just adding the options.
Yeah, this is much
and
better.
yeah, and we'll find and replace the end line marks because it sometimes messes up the call, and as well here I will find and replace and
This
here's
is
just
like a
an
pro
enter.
tip, which could
Yeah,
alone
so,
could save someone hours of pain.
yeah. Sometimes when you are using the n-line signs, you are getting error, but you don't know why. And then what we will do, I will add a group under this, add a group under the text area, and we will add a text here to display the information. It will be group called group response. Response, and we'll add some text here, maybe like this. It will be nice. Yep. And the content text, parent, and this will be displaying the text, right? So I'm not explaining this because it should be obvious if you are using Bubble. If not, you can play around, right? So in the next step of the workflow, I will display data in a group, our group response, and I will display what we've got from the API, from the API, right? And now we have a structured choices, first item, message content. So firstly, we'll try to call in, not to call any tools, and we'll display the response. Let's check if it works in this basic use case. Yes, so we've got the say something, hello. Let's check if the response work or we'll mess around. Yeah, see, it responds, right? So this is the easiest part. Yeah, right now, we are on this step. And we can, of course, ask him, please do the web research. And because we provided an assistant with the functions, he should either call a function or ask me about the topic of the web research, because as you remember, the function to be called needs to have the topic, right? So OpenAI needs to have this topic. Let's check it. See, could you please specify the topic of the person? Of course, if I specify the topic, AI agent, he doesn't have the memory yet, so he won't know about what I'm talking about, right? He has no idea what I'm talking about. But if I provide him with the complete information, I will. So here we are displaying the response, and in the next group, I will display the tools that assistant is trying to call to demonstrate it, right? So this will be group tools to call. we'll have two groups, right? So yeah, and in this second group, I will display data in group tools to call, and we will get, because the tools in the response are not in the message content, the tools are in the tool calls list, right? And we can say, for example, each item's function or formatted as text, right? So we will see what type of tools it's trying to call. Function name and params. The function params are this tool function arguments and delimiter enter, right? So right now we will display the response from the OpenAI and the list of tools it's trying to call. And let's try to, can you do a web research on AI agents? See, he responded with the function research web and the params. Topic is AI agents. And now, how to transform it into the assistant? We need to fetch the response from the OpenAI, and if it contains any tool calls, we need to perform some actions in our system based on this tool calls. So, for example, we can create a custom event called research web. Yeah. And trigger this custom event, research web, when the tool calls, let's say the first tool called function name is, and then we need to get the function name. So of course the function name is research web because we called it like this, and we can put it here, research web. But since we've got the option set, we can use it like this. Get an option, research web, function name, right? So we will call our custom event, research web, when the function from the OpenAI is research web name. And this research web can have the parameters, right? The parameters for research web is topic. It's the custom the custom functions can have, of course, the parameters. And this here in the trigger, I will provide him with the topic. Of course, now we have the first hard thing to do, because the OpenAI is putting the params in a JSON. As we know, the JSON, getting information from JSONs is not straight away in Babel. It's complicated. You need to use backend workflows or some kind of a plugin. I will use the plugin called read JSON, and get value by key to extract it from. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
It's simple.
So firstly, yeah, so we will use it, read JSON and get value by key.
So did you know that if you do this with Claude and use a Claude tool, tool calling, Bubble can get you the JSON structure it can extract in the API
really?
call. Yeah.
This is nice. So we can switch from OpenAI to Claude and we don't have to do this step. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I need to experiment with it.
It's really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was talking to James Davenport about it, and he was saying he thinks that there's just some small like difference in the way that Bubble has like set up their connection with OpenAI and Claude, or the way the API connector works, that like means that we can't get the JSON back so easily from OpenAI, which is a shame.
This is Bubble. This is Bubble, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so see what we do. We are extracting the topic from the function arguments and triggering the function called, the custom event called research web. And in the research web, let's, just to check if it was called, let's put the alert message somewhere here on the page, and it will be displaying the alert message with the topic. So we will know alert, show message in an alert box, and we will display the topic that was passed, right? So the flow is, we're calling the OpenAI, checking if the function was called, and if the function was called, we are triggering our custom event to show the message in alert box. Then we can, inside this custom function, we can put more actions, but let's check if it works. Can you do a research on web AI agents? Let's check if it works. If I didn't mess anything, see? So it was triggered, right? It displayed the AI agent. And
Would
now
you mind
what I
showing
can,
the bit where you use the read JSON plugin, and
yeah,
because I think I was talking while you did that.
So the read JSON plugin has a special action called read JSON and get value by key. And to this, I'm passing the function arguments. And
okay,
the function arguments,
nice and simple.
it's like this, right? So the topic ages. So it's extracting this key and the value of this key as a result of this action.
It's a shame this plugin doesn't allow you to do multiple keys in one action and then just output them.
You can actually do it very easily by installing a Toolbox plugin and using the server script here, and asking Claude or ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever you like to write a script to extract the keys and values from the JSON provided and create a JavaScript for this, right? So if you need something like this, it's a pro tip to just ask an assistant to write a script, and he will do it like this, right? And then you can extract. He can write any JavaScript to play around with the JSON. Right here, I need only one key, so to simplify things, I'm using this plugin. But if I need some more complex ones, I'm using the JavaScript, right? And then see, in the custom functions, we can do whatever we like. We can play around with Bubble database, we can play around with front end, and we can, of course, call some external APIs. And I've added an API to call to Perplexity. This way, we can combine multiple AI models, multiple tools, or even call any external APIs inside here. And instead of showing the alert box, I will use this chat call to Perplexity, and I will provide it the topic of the research. And after it was completed, I will display the data in the group response, and the data will be result. Where do we have here? Choices, first item, message content. I think it's here. So right now it will call my. So firstly, the OpenAI will decide if to use functions or not. It will respond me with the function name and the arguments. I am extracting the topic from the arguments, and I am triggering a custom event inside Bubble with this topic. And inside the custom event, I have another call to Perplexity to do this research, right, on the web, and then displaying group in the group response. Let's check how it works. Yeah. So can you do a web research on AI agents? Yeah. Of course, all of these can be moved to the backend to get a better user experience. But yeah, this is this, right? So the OpenAI understood that I want to do a web research on AI agents, and in this custom bubble functions I called Perplexity API, and this Perplexity API responded with the research, right? So this is the main logic. And now you need to combine all of this into some kind of a loops and the decisions if you want to do more and more more things, more calls related with the functions.
So you could just have one workflow, one backend workflow, which does the OpenAI part, and then you feed in the results of your web research, or like send an email or whatever calendar event. You feed back the results back into that single workflow, and it adds to your conversation, and then it knows all the history of what it's been doing, and you just set it going once, and it can do like
actually I prefer
complex things.
Yeah, I prefer to have firstly a separate workflows for each of the functions. So let's do the another one for sending emails, right? So send email, it will be send email, and the email will have, let's say it will have its topic, and the email, of course, it will send email with the email from agent. And the body will be the topic. So right now we have the research web and send email. We need a place to keep the conversation history. If we are using if we are creating a real app, we can keep this conversation history in the database or current user. For the purpose of this demo, I will just create it here as a custom state. So we'll have the thread JSON history, and it will be a list of texts. Yeah. And I will display this text somewhere here, maybe here in this group. We'll have, it's just for, for debugging purposes. So we'll have the, what's the name of the page? Index, thread JSON history formatted as text, and we will display the list of JSONs here. And right now, when I call the assistant, so before calling the assistant, I need to add the user question to the thread, and then when the assistant responds, I need to add this response to this thread. So we'll have all the lists, right? So this was the thing I was doing manually, right? The pasting the this here. So I can create a custom event called add message to JSON thread with a parameter called message. Yeah, message. It will be text, and this will be setting state of this list of texts, the history, right? It will be the history plus item, the message. So right now, before I'm calling the OpenAI, I will trigger this custom event, adding message to the JSON thread, and I will add this role user, arbitrary text, to a JSON thread, right? And I will call the OpenAI chat completions, not with a single message, but with all the messages from the thread. right? So I will have the list of all the and the messages, not only the single message, right? So instead of adding the message, I will call him with the thread JSON history each item. Where is it? Each item. Yeah, just JSON history. Yeah. Let me check if it's a list or not, and I did it like the right way. Yeah, it's a list. Yeah.
So just for the people watching,
yeah,
you're doing it this way because this is a demo. But ordinarily you would save those into the database, wouldn't you, as like a thread of messages, and you would pull it from the database, because otherwise you risk like someone's browser crashes and they lose their current thread.
Yeah. Let's format them as text. This text with the limiter to make sure we have it right, and of course find and replace the enter to replace with no. Yeah. So right now it's adding the message to the thread, and then after I get a response from the OpenAI, again I'm adding a message to the thread, but the role is assistant because this is the response from the assistant, and the response from the assistant is the choices first item message content. Yeah. So thanks to that, I will right now remove this one, and maybe leave it this way. Thanks to this, I will have the list of all the messages. Let's check it if it works. Hi, see, this is the first thing, and the next one was also added. The assistant. Hello, how can I assist you today? And I can continue. Tell me a joke. And again, it's adding its thread. Yeah, and now it broke, right? So blah blah blah. JSON body. Something wrong with the JSON body. The content. We don't have the quotes here, so we need to add the quotes here. Message content formatted as JSON save. I forgot about this, right? So right now we have the memory. Yeah. Again, hi. It responses, and then I can say, tell me a joke, and it responds. And then I can continue. Why don't skeletons fly? Which I don't have. It wasn't funny.
New joke. I always get the one about scientists and atoms.
Right now we got the history, and of course we can display this as a thread. The question answer in the chat-like interface, right? For this. So this is the simplest part. And right now I need to create a function to check if there are any tool calls, and if there are any tool calls, I will try to call these tools one by one and add their responses from these tools. This is the most complex part because it needs to do this. You need to understand all the previous parts, the logic, and so on, right? So I call this the function, the custom event called function looper, because it will loop through all the functions and perform them one by one. Because OpenAI can respond not only with one function, but with multiple functions. For example, do the research and then send email, or send 2 emails. So it will call 2 functions. We need to be prepared for that, right? So here we will trigger this adding messages to the JSON thread, and we will call this this custom function again to create a loop. So to create a loop in Babel, we can use the schedule a custom event inside this event. We need to schedule this function looper again to loop, right? Of course, we cannot do it like this, but we can schedule a custom events from here and call function looper, copy it, and paste it here, and voila, we have a Bubble loops, right? So this is how we do loops in Bubble frontend.
Okay.
And we can
Okay,
remove
I've
it
never
here,
done
right?
that before.
So another pro tip, right? How to do
Yeah.
the
But
loops
usually in real life, you'd probably
Bubble.
do all of this in your back-end workflows, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But sometimes if you need some kind of a front-end loops, maybe not in an AA agent, this is how we do it, right? So
Yeah, I've never done that before. That's very good.
yeah.
A lot can be done with copying and pasting stuff.
Yeah. How Bubble won't block this, right? So
yeah.
And in the function looper, we need to call all of these functions based on the information we got. We can call them one by one, because when we are getting, for example, here, let's get back to this and say send an email to not to one recipient, but to two recipients, right? Send an email to Alan example.com and Kelly example. Send emails with example body and subject. Yeah. And see, when I call it like this, it should call the functions 2 times. Let's check. What would you like the subject of the body? Send an email with test body and subject. See, the tool, we have 2 tool calls. The first one, send email, and the second one. So you don't have one tool call, you can have multiple, right? So we need to be ready for that. Yeah. So blah blah blah. Where do we have here? Here. So let's create another function called, I call it function router. And the function router goes through the functions that are available here in our Bubble app, and fires them if the parameter from the function router relies to this function, right? So here we have trigger and function research web and trigger a function send email. And as a param here, we will have the function, and the type is the chat completions with tools. It's the chat message tool call. It should be somewhere here. It's so long I don't have it here, but chat completions with tool, I think it's this, or chat message tool call. Blah, blah, blah.
It's very annoying that you can't read them all.
Yeah.
I've had this, and you can't, there's no tooltip.
Chat call. No, chat call, message tool call. Anyway. I think it's here. Yeah, chat completions is message tool call. Yeah, this is this. And in function looper, we have the same, but we have a list functions, and it was this one. Chat completions with tool message tool calls. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and in function router, we've got the information about the function. So we are, for example, triggering the research web when the function name is get an option research web name, and we are triggering send email if the function name is send email, right? So this is how we how we do it, right? So yeah, and then so the function router it works as a router and decides what kind of function to call, and we call the function router from the function looper. Function looper loops through all the functions that went from the OpenAI call. So here we are triggering the function router with the functions first item. Yeah, so we've got the list, and then we are scheduling the function looper again with the functions list functions minus item functions first item. So this is the similar way of doing this in backend workflow, right? We are scheduling the same workflow minus item that already was processed, right? We are processing the first item and then scheduling it again without this item. And of course, we need to add here only when the function, let's call it function list, it will be. We are calling it again. Yeah.
So you could
function.
You could put the function router actions in this workflow if you wanted, but then it wouldn't work if there were multiple like emails being called in one thing.
Yeah, multiple functions, right? So it will be, it will be harder, right? So only on minus item functions, this first item count more than 0, right? Yeah. Yeah, so this is the logic of how it works, and the function looper should be called only when we got some tools to call from the OpenAI response, right? So if we are not getting any tools to call, we are not calling the function loop. If we have any tools to call, we are calling the function loop, right? So we are triggering a custom event. So instead here I had the one call, right? Extract the JSON and trigger the single function. So instead of this, I'm triggering a custom event called function looper. And the function list we have in the result. And here the choices, first item, message tool calls. Yeah. And we are passing this as a function list only if this list tool calls count is more than 0, or if first item is present, right? So we are triggering our functions only if OpenAI responded with functions. If not, we are simply adding the message to the JSON, the JSON thread. Because if OpenAI is responding with functions, where is it here? If OpenAI is responding with functions, the content, I mean the message, is null. We need to firstly perform all these tool calls, and then the assistant, and then pass the information that those tools were, those functions were run with success, and then assistant will respond us with some message. So we may be sure that if we are not getting, if we have functions, we don't need to display the result for the user yet. We need to wait for all the functions, then go to OpenAI with the functions result, and then display this, add the message to the JSON thread. And to go with the responses, we need to tell the OpenAI that the function was called, and we need to provide some result. Yes, I will show you here. Blah blah blah. It's not here. Passing the result, founding function calls. See, to provide the result, we are appending that the tool was called, the call ID was called, and the content, I mean the result. When OpenAI provides us the functions to call, each function has its ID. When we are performing function in our system, we need to respond to OpenAI that we performed this function and what was the result.
Okay, and so you can't just respond with just like plain text to say these are the results, just like a chat.
You need to refer, because if OpenAI provides you the list of functions with IDs, you need to tell OpenAI, okay, those functions were performed, so he can continue, for example, to run new functions and so on and so on. And with that, we can create a loop, and then we can, for example, with a single command, perform the tasks that are on my list. Call an agent, and he will, he will go through the list, then he will perform the tool calls. Then based on the response, he can perform another ones and another ones and another ones, right? So this is the loop that the agent will perform. But to do this, we need to provide it an information about what's happening also on our system, if the tools were done or not. And unfortunately, we ran out of time for today because I have another call. So I don't know if I think it was the good introduction for that, and the base for how it works. Taken from that, if someone is working already with Bubble, he can take it from here and play around. Of course, if you have any questions, you can ping me on LinkedIn or Twitter, called X, or visit Create With, right? The conference where I will be, and we can chat about it.
Yeah, exactly. So Tom is going to be actually doing a workshop on building AI agents with Bubble the day before the conference. So check out createwith.com for tickets to that. But otherwise, Tom will most definitely be at the conference hanging out, and it's a good place to ask questions. But yeah, thank you so much for this.
Yeah, of course. If you want to get deeper, if you want to go deeper into building AI agents on the workshop, yeah, just buy a ticket and join me a day before the conference. We will be building agents and, of course, answering questions about this. And if not, I will be at the conference, as Kieran said.
Yeah, and this has really opened my mind to a lot of possibilities. Now I want to go off and rebuild N8N in Bubble. Which
yeah, actually, it is possible to rebuild N8N in Bubble. Maybe not as a homework, right, for this.
Yeah,
now let's go
this weekend. I'll do it. But yeah, it seems amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm sure people will love this video. But yeah, we look forward to seeing you at the conference and learning more about all this cool stuff.